you coming down to visit us here at the Trailblazers Draft Party. Come down and see us here on the club level. We're going to be hanging out and having a good time getting ready for round one of the 2024 NBA Draft. What's up, Godfather?
Time to party, Chad, huh?
Yeah, I love it, man. Draft night tonight, and the Blazers have a lot of tools to work with. 2 picks in the first round, 2 picks in the second round, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Joe Cronin and his staff have got in store for the team. You know, last year was a massive shift in the focus of the franchise, and it was a huge moment when they went out and decided to take Scoot Henderson. I'm not going to put this year on that level, but it's close because they're in the middle of this rebuild project, and so every decision you make, it has a lasting impact. So it's critical that they get these decisions right and make sure they find the players that they need as they continue to move forward and find talent.
Yeah, they're in a position where you don't want too many missteps. You've got to hit what you pick. And this is the most unusual draft, Chad. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen a draft like this where you can look at mock drafts and see a guy anywhere from number 1 to number 7. That's just ridiculous. And I think we know who the top 2 are going to be, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it switches because there's no clear divide between the very best and the other guys.
Yeah, the top 2, Zachary Rishisher, who is the consensus number 1 pick. He's been favored to go number 1 for quite some time, and then the second pick expected to be Alexander Sarr.
Yes.
And what's interesting to me is they're both international players. I guess what I'm impressed with is how impactful France has been in terms of development of basketball players. I know I joke around a lot about, you know, the NBA being taken over by the Europeans and how as Americans we're not developing basketball players as well as we used to, mostly because of the younger leagues and, you know, the way kids are being brought up now in the game. But I'll say this, Godfather, you know, props to France in their development process. And I think in that area, you know, it's a very diverse community, ethnically diverse, and so you get a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and so they're identifying these youngsters who have a chance to be stars, and then they're developing them and doing a heck of a job. So now you're getting these guys coming in with incredible frames, like Rishisher, for instance, like 6'9", got an incredible wingspan. Two-way players, guys who can defend and make an impact right away, and I would say that about Rishisher and even for Sarr, guys who have work to do in certain aspects of their game, but those are 2 guys that can come in right now and make an impact defensively in the NBA. So props to France for identifying these guys and then the process of development of getting these guys up to speed to where they can come over and make an impact in the NBA. I joke about it, but truly it's impressive to see the work in France and the rest of Europe in terms of the players they're discovering and the development, and then the way these guys get a chance to compete against older men as they grow in their basketball game. It's impressive.
That last part is a big deal, Chad. The idea of pushing players upward and having them compete against the older players is huge. And France has really learned a lot from the rest of Europe, I believe. But it all started, according to friends I know who are over in France now involved in that basketball program, is that it all started with Tony Parker. And that gave all those kids in France somebody to identify with in the NBA, somebody they think they can be like. And fortunate for the basketball development in France, Tony Parker was an average-sized human being. So every kid with a basketball in France suddenly knew, hey, I don't have to be 7 feet to get there now. Now, it just also so happens that a guy who was 7'5" last year was the number 1 pick, and we have 2 more Frenchmen going probably 1 and 2 this year, Chad. It's huge strides for a country like that who prior to Tony Parker wasn't known for basketball.
All right, tonight the Blazers, as we mentioned, picks 7 and 14 in round 1. They have 2 second-round picks. Just in general, what do you think is the most important thing for Joe Cronin and his crew to accomplish tonight?
Well, I just think it's important to get a player who you think has long-term growth and who will be with this team when things get better around here. You know, we're thinking a couple of years from now when they're ready to take that jump up into the playoffs, into even higher than, you know, play in. And you got to get that guy who you think is a building block. And I think if he needs to play a lot, play him next year and develop these guys too, because you have a chance now to get 2 of the top 14 players in this draft. Now, it's not a great draft, but you still have a great chance to get 2 NBA players in this draft.
All right, for the Blazers at number 7, I think they have interest in a few different players. Donovan Clingan is one of those guys. Now, we've seen him in the mocks you mentioned being all over the place, anywhere from the top pick at number 1 Atlanta being tempted, all the way down to number 8. So 1 to 8, Klingon could go. I don't expect him to be available at number 7 when the Blazers select. If he does get to 7, he won't go past 7. But at first, I was a little bit resistant to the idea of a big man because I'm so focused on forward. They've been searching for that small forward for so long. But here's the reality about the Blazers. We don't expect Robert Williams to be a long-term part of their plans. In fact, I would make the argument now with Robert Williams, who's got a history of injuries and now surgeries on both of his knees, that you might be better off moving him sooner rather than later to prevent the opportunity for him to get hurt again. And even though with the injuries, he's still got the talent that where some contender out there would find interest in bringing a guy like Williams, because he can make an impact. You have to monitor his body and make sure you don't play him too much. But I think that you can move him now. And we'll see what happens with DeAndre Ayton. The Blazers don't have to move him now because they still have 2 more years of team control. But the truth is, if you look at their numbers last year in terms of rim protection, cleaning the glass, they were second to last in the NBA. I think Washington was worse, but they gave up 70.8% at the rim. That's a bad percentage.
Yeah.
The one thing that Klingon does is he rim protects. He's one of the best rim protectors, probably the best rim protector in the draft. He can make a difference defensively. He's a great screen setter. Now, he's got a lot of work to do like most of the prospects in this year's draft, but I could see Klingon being a tantalizing prospect for a number of teams, including Portland, because of what he brings defensively. And with work, maybe he can become more of an option offensively if he can develop that three-point shot. But defensively, rim protection, good offensive rebounder, and brings a little bit of toughness. I could see why you might want to take interest in him, because he might be one of those players you're talking about that can grow with the team as they move forward.
But that also sets up an interesting scenario in tonight's draft, Chad, because Houston has that number 3 pick.
Yeah.
They've already kind of indicated they don't have a real interest in taking a player.
Yeah.
They're trying to win next year, and they're probably ready for that if they can add a good, solid veteran player. Now, Portland's got Ayton. They got Brogdon, who played for Ime in Boston. They've got Matisse Thybulle. They have players that might be of real use to that team down in Houston. So Houston's open for business. The Blazers have probably 3 or 4 tradable assets to give them. You might be able to trade up. If you really like Klingon, you might be able to get up there and get him.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And we'll keep an eye on Houston. We'll get to the blockbuster deals that went down last night with Houston, with the Knicks, and with Brooklyn, and we'll get to that coming up here in about 10 minutes. But I do believe that tonight's draft, after the first 2 picks, where you're going to see, I believe, Rissachar and Sarr go off the board, I think everything starts there at number 3 with Houston and what they plan to do. Are they going to take a player? Are they going to look to make a move? Are they talking to Phoenix? And the one thing we know about the Blazers, they've done their due diligence where they know what it would cost to move up potentially. Mm-hmm. They know what other teams are looking to do. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those things where it's probably not the draft where you want to give up assets to move up, but the Rockets have a lot of things to offer, and depending what else they might be willing to offer off their roster, the Blazers have 2 first-round picks. It could be an opportunity to move up, bring more clarity to your roster, pick up a good young player, and maybe grab one of those rookies that you want. So I do think keep an eye on Houston at 3, because that's where the draft could get really interesting tonight.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal scenario for the Blazers. Don't you, Chad? I mean, if you can get up there at 3 and get the player of your choice, you have a great chance to get one of the few really good possibilities in this draft, because there aren't many. Let's face it, everybody's saying that. But I worry about Klingon being gone at 3. I've seen a few mocks that have him going before that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting.
One of the other players that, Portland has reportedly shown interest in is Cody Williams out of Colorado.
Yeah.
I like him because he fits the position of need, but defensively, he's got the potential to become a true two-way player in terms of 3-and-D. He's got that type of tenacity, and so I like him a lot. And I think Francis Williams, when he joined us a couple of days ago, said he's kind of a high-risk, high-reward type player, and that's what's going to be interesting with the Blazers in round number 1. Last year, or the year before, that when they made the decision, they went high risk, high reward.
They did.
What are they going to do this year? Will they keep it safe with someone like Connect, who can shoot the basketball and make immediate contributions in the league, or will you go high risk and high reward, bringing in the guy who will require a little bit of time and development? How would you look at that?
I think it's a great question, Chad, and I'm not sure what they would do. I think this is a time the high risk would bother me a little bit right now. But if there's ever a time to do it, it may be now. I would just rather see them do that with a 14 pick than a number 7 pick. And I think at 7, you have a chance to get a guy, say Connect, whether he's their guy or not. I think he has a proven NBA skill. He can make threes, and that's something they need here, and they'll need that in the next, 10 years. You know, they're always going to need a three-point shooter the way game's played now. So I think when they make that decision, Chad, we learn a lot about what we're going to see moving forward.
Yeah, it's the same thing with another guy that they could have interest in Tijan Saloon. He's long and athletic. It's going to require some time, but with him and Williams, it could be a situation where you take a guy and take a chance, and then things hit, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get the big-time reward of having a player with that type of skill set, a two-way player who's got great length that can impact the game. And as you've continued to try and drill inside of my head, most of these teams are looking for positionless basketball to have versatility on the floor, length, and guys who can do a lot of different things, right? That's the way we're moving in the NBA.
Yeah, especially guys, I think, who can defend any position, because everybody wants to switch on defense now. So you need those switchable players, and that's really important. And that's why I always say your position on the floor, whether it's guard, forward, or center, is defined by who you can guard. If you can guard guards, you can be a guard. You know, if you can defend forwards, you can be a forward. And so you're looking for, if you're a forward, you better be able to guard power forwards, small forwards. And if you're a guard, you better be able to defend both guards.
All right, we'll come back on the Rib City Drive. Dwight and Chad, we are live here from Moda Center on the club level, southwest corner above the fountain out there on Rose Quarter. So if you're coming down for the party tonight, come by and say hi.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll focus our attention to what we saw last night. Working his ass off like usual and doing a good job of making us look good, so we appreciate that. All right, we got some confirmation. We'll get to the Knicks specifics here in just a moment, but Woj is reporting that the intentions of OG Anunoby, he's going to sign a 5-year, $212 million deal with the Knicks, who last night were able to acquire Mikal Bridges in a trade with the Nets. In return, Brooklyn gets Bojan Bogdanovic, 6 picks, and a 2028 unprotected pick swap, 5 first-round picks. So the Knicks now, it's pretty impressive, but they have Anunoby to pair with Bridges to have 2 dynamic wings like the Celtics, to where they're saying, hey, we're here and we're going to make a move to compete in the Western Conference. Now we'll see if it costs them Hartenstein because they're spending a lot of money. Yeah. We'll also see what their plans are long-term with Julius Randle, who's going to be back healthy next year. But I like the Knicks maneuver because Mikal Bridges is one of my favorite players in the league, one of the best two-way players. He's an impact guy, and he is remarkably healthy, which is important when you're going to play with a guy like Coach Thibodeau. What's your takeaway on this move?
Yeah, well, as much as Bridges has played in the past, he never misses a game, and he plays 40 to 42 minutes a night. He's like an Iron Man. Tibbs he'll test that. I'm sure he feels he can get more out of him than that.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. Give me 46 minutes a night. No, honestly, that's a player. Bridges is a player that every team in the league would love to have. He's just a guy whose name has popped up in trade talks countless times, and they've always said, we're not going to deal him. We're not going to trade him. Well, they did, and they needed draft capital, and that was a big thing in this trade. And Bridges is going to be wonderful for the Knicks, and not only that, he's another Villanova guy, right? So here he is with all these other Nova guys, and they got great chemistry. They love each other because they won big at Villanova, and they're going to be really tough to handle. I would say, I don't know if Randall's odd man out now. I don't know what's going to happen with him, and if they can't bring Hartenstein back, then they're going to have to find a big somewhere. Maybe in this draft. Maybe they move up and get a big in this draft, or they find one on free agency.
Well, the ultimate thing for the Knicks is they got multiple picks in this year's draft.
Yeah.
They can find some bigs to take in this year's draft, and they're going to probably want to do that because with all the money they're spending on their stars now, the most important thing that GMs love, they love rookie-scale contracts because you have cost control there. So the Knicks, I think, are in a great position to add some youth, some size, and more importantly now, you add in a guy like Mikal Bridges to join Anunoby, DiVincenzo, and, of course, Jalen Brunson. I mean, they got some key pieces, and this is a team that impressed in the postseason. And now with Thibodeau, who seems to have the locker room's ear, they play hard for him. This could be very good for the Eastern Conference in terms of this New York-Boston rivalry, where New York knew that they had some good pieces, but they needed to further extend their rotation and their depth to where they'll have more guys and hopefully be healthier come postseason time. And maybe Thibodeau won't have to run Josh Hart or guys like that out there for 48-plus minutes a night. So I love the move. Mikal Bridges is one of my favorite players in the league, but I love long wings who can go both ways. And what I love about Bridges, we'll see what he does in New York in terms of the exact plan, but he showcased some offensive ability when he went to Brooklyn because he was freed up to take more shots. My guess is with the team he's joining now and Jalen Brunson being the ultimate meal ticket on offense, it will allow Bridges to focus in more on what he does best, which is defend. And, of course, that's right up Thibodeau's alley.
Yeah, of course.
They're going to be nasty to deal with now.
Yeah, and I mentioned they need a center, okay, if they go this route and don't keep the guy they had. All right, what happens, though, they don't need a great center. With all the talent they have around, it's just like, go get us some rebounds, big guy, and protect the rim. I don't care if you score a basket all season long.
Yeah.
Give me an offensive rebound once in a while and just go ahead and pass it back out if you want. We don't care. You just need somebody who can defend the other center, block a shot once in a while. He doesn't have to be Wemby, because they got talent all around him. So in fact, Chad, they should be looking for people who don't need shots because they got a lot of guys on their team right now who need shots. And deserve shots because they're good offensive players, and that's a great problem to have. That's the best.
But think about general manager and coach, and you've talked about this before about where you've got to have that synergy between your front office and your coaching staff so you can pick players and kind of shape the team around the way that the coach wants to play. Look at the guys that Thibodeau's got now that kind of match his personality. Mikal Bridges, two-way guy, tough, plays big minutes, a great defender. Anunoby, length, defensive-minded, tough player. DiVincenzo, tough player. Jalen Brunson, about as tough as they come. Undersized, but an incredible player and a great scorer. And now Josh Hart, who is the Swiss Army knife, who will play big minutes and bring some heart and soul to that lineup. Just the different pieces that they have, like they're going to be a bunch of Bulldogs out there. It matches the way that Thibodeau wants to play, and he's got guys who won't question anything. They'll go out there and play hard for him. And I think it's the perfect mix between front office, coach, in terms of supplying him with the way he wants to play the guys, and now they've got some makings of that.
Well, and it's a good time to salute the front office. They've been able to keep James Dolan out of their hair enough to make very astute moves. Hey, don't forget, 2 or 3 years ago, that was still a hapless franchise.
Yep.
There was nothing going on in New York. They make a few changes. They've really got it going now. They've made some great moves.
It's obviously a haul to give up when you're talking about 5 first-round picks, but isn't this what you're supposed to do in the NBA, that when you finally accrue some assets and you've got the team that you believe can make a run, that at some point you've got to make that leap and go out there and make the move? They clearly think Bridges can be a big-time difference maker, but isn't this what it's all about? At some point, you unleash those assets to put yourself in a position to make a title run.
Yeah, of course. That's why you accumulate them. And that's why everybody's sitting around chat waiting for OKC to do that. It's the exact same situation. They got all these good young players. They're good. They're in the playoffs now, one of the better teams in the league. They had a great MVP candidate. But when are you going to start spending some of those draft picks you're putting in your back pocket all the time? Pull those out and go get one more. They got to be just like one missing piece away. Go out and get that guy, for heaven's sakes, right? I mean, what are you waiting for? Don't let that window go by where you've got all these young guys. Let them have the shot at going all the way now.
Boy, Villanova well represented now in New York. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and now Mikal Bridges.
Unselfish players who play team basketball. This is really a good situation.
That's got to be cool for Jay Wright, who is now seeing what he built at Villanova and the culture he created, and now seeing it unleashed in the NBA with the way those guys play, being in high demand and making a difference for the franchise.
Well, it's also a testimony to the job he did because he created players like this. Unselfish, team-oriented guys. Even Jalen Brunson is a team guy. He's not out there looking to get 50 every night. He's going to give the ball up. And playing with the former college teammates, I think that's just a huge advantage that nobody's talking much about. But it's going to be great for them.
Dwight and Chad, we're live here at Moda Center on the club level, getting ready for the first round of the NBA draft, which is coming up at 5. We're here in the southwest corner above the fountain. So if you're coming down to the party tonight, we're going to be here up throughout the evening. Travis Demers and Francis Williams will anchor coverage starting at 4:30. And come on down, and hope you're going to be here and enjoy the draft party tonight here at Moda Center. Now, for the Nets, they clearly are in rebuild mode now. And what's cool about the Nets is they've gone out and acquired a boatload of picks to be able to retool their franchise. This is what they're getting back in the deal. 4 unprotected first-round picks from the Knicks in 25, 27, 29, and 31. A 2025 top 4 protected first-round pick from Milwaukee via New York. A 25 first-round pick swap they owed to Houston from the Harden trade. A 26 first-round pick they owed to Houston from the Harden trade. A 2028 unprotected pick swap with the Knicks first-rounder. And a 2025 second-round pick from New York. That is a haul to get back in terms of what they had, and now have a chance to have multiple assets to retool their franchise. What do you think about the Nets' moves?
That's how you do it. That is how you do it. That's a great job. It's like that's what Danny Ainge did in Boston. He just started accumulating. That's what happened in OKC, and that's the way you do it. You grab as many of those picks as you can, hopefully premium picks, and some of those are going to be pretty good picks, and then you just hire good scouts, send them out on the road, and let's go.
So now Brooklyn has essentially acquired 9 first-round picks along with Cameron Johnson from the 2023 Durant trade. I mean, that's a haul.
Yeah.
That's a haul. And, hey, they tried, man. They went all in to try and form the super team, and it didn't work. So
Right.
you accept that. You understand that. You unload. You retool, and then you go out now and you've got the tools to work with to build your franchise again.
It's so important, Chad, to understand and know when what you're doing isn't working. You have to pull a plug at some point. And these teams are pretty good at doing that. And I even respect Houston for saying, okay, we've done the draft pick thing. We got good young players. We drafted well. All right, now it's time for us to spend some of that draft picks that we accumulated, and we're going to go out and find that last piece of the puzzle. We're going to put a good veteran player here. They want to go get Kevin Durant, which is the very definition of a good veteran player right now, a great veteran player, really. They want to put him together with what they have. Now, I don't know if Matt Ishbia in Phoenix, the owner, is going to go for that. I know a lot of GMs who would.
Yeah, there's no question about it. We'll get to Ishbia in just a second. I don't know if he's a great poker player or if he's just flat out crazy. So we'll find out soon enough.
What are the odds, you know?
But in regards to Houston in this deal with Brooklyn, here's what the Rockets got. 2025 first-round pick swap from Phoenix owed to Brooklyn from the Kevin Durant trade. 2027 first-round pick from Phoenix owed to Brooklyn in the Durant trade. A 2029 first-round pick from either Phoenix or Dallas, depending on which one is more favorable. And a 2029 first-round pick swap for less favorable of the Phoenix or Dallas picks. So now, and this has been the big scuttlebutt after this deal went down, is everyone believes that they're trying to position themselves to go out there and make a move for Kevin Durant because Ime Udoka looks at that team, like you said, with the young roster. We go out and add a piece like Durant, we got a chance to go out there and make some noise in the Western Conference. Now, Matt Ishbia, after having a chance to sit back and listen to all the noise, put this tweet out today. Matt Ishbia, owner of the Suns. This is a classic right here. NBA draft night is the best. Everyone talking about the drama and storylines. Some are right and some are just wrong. My turn. Phoenix loves Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant loves Phoenix. And we are competing for a championship this year because we have the team to do it. Gotta love draft night. Go Suns. Now, is he crazy or is he being like the Texas A&M coach, lying out of his backside, and as soon as the opportunity comes to execute this deal with the Rockets, he's going to do it because it's a great opportunity if Houston wants to make that move to get all the picks back so they can retool their franchise.
They can erase a pretty big mistake that they made with all those picks.
Yes, because
That's
Kevin Durant, you and I both agree, phenomenal player.
Yeah.
But with the roster pieces they have around him and what they gave up, they don't have the tools to create the team that can win a championship.
Exactly. They have no tools. They don't have much to trade to get better. I mean, you're going to have to pick up waiver wire guys. It's just not going to work.
No.
So, I mean, suck it up. Admit you made a bad mistake with that trade and get those picks back. I mean, come on, Matt. And to answer your question, he crazy. He crazy. I firmly believe that. I think he's such a rookie owner that he's one of those guys that thinks he has to make a big splash. And he made a big one by bringing Kevin Durant there, and he doesn't want to erase it this quickly.
Well, you and I both know this with NBA owners, these young guys who come in, these young mavericks looking to make noise, right? I have no problem with that, man. You're rich. You got power. You want to make something happen. You want to win a championship. Yeah. It's great. But a lot of them will make decisions, experience the pain from those decisions, and with time, they wisen up to the game and how it's played. And so I think Ishbia is having to learn on the fly about what you can do, what you can't do, good moves, bad moves, and whatever. And that's going to be the tough thing for him because he's young and is aggressive and wants to win.
The other thing about this, though, he probably doesn't need to make that trade immediately or even this summer. Maybe you play out the first half of the season and read the tea leaves. You know, after the first half of the season, along about the trade deadline, it's like, we're not winning any championships here. You know, okay, then make the deal. And I think Houston will be patient with those picks because even if they added Kevin Durant at the trade deadline, look out.
Yeah, you're right. And that's probably the best way to play it. Phoenix doesn't have to do it now. Mm-hmm. They can sit back and wait, see how the season unfolds.
Yeah.
If you get enough evidence that, hey, this is not the right group to get to where we want to go, then you can go back to Houston because you know they're going to be ready to pounce. And keep in mind, Houston with the number 3 pick tonight, that's where the draft really begins. Are they going to draft a player or are they going to look elsewhere with maybe some of their young pieces and their number 3 pick to capitalize on that situation, because a team like Portland and many others would be willing to probably move up to take a shot to get Donovan Clingan, who is more than likely going to be available at 3 where Houston is selecting.
Yeah.
And as much as Portland would like to have a guy like Clingan, I just don't think he would be – no one expects him to be there at 7. If he
agree.
the Blazers would gobble him up. But
Yeah.
my guess is he'll be gone before then, because, again, anytime you have a big with size and potential and a propensity to rim protect, that's exactly what teams need in the NBA.
And a team who has the luxury of waiting on him a little bit. They can wait a year or two. He's got some developing to do. He's got to get better, but they've got the time to wait on that.
Yeah. And as we've talked about before with the Blazers, I know that fans get frustrated because they want the team to win now, but I'm actually excited about this process because they chose a direction. Lillard's in Milwaukee. They went young. They've got some young pieces now with Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe, and you want to see those guys develop. I'm anxious to see what other young – it doesn't just have to be drafted players, but what other young potential pieces they can get their hands on in potential deals. And as you mentioned, Malcolm Brogdon almost certainly going to go quickly, either tonight or right at the start of free agency. They've got to make a decision on Anthony Simons. He could net something in return. Obviously, Robert Williams is going to be a player discussed. Jeremy Grant. They've got multiple veteran players who can make a difference for somewhere else, where even if you can't acquire a draft pick in next year's draft, maybe you can get a good young player that can come in that you, as you talked about, that can grow with your team and be a part of the core in the future.
Yeah, exactly. You're dealing from an area of strength in a way, because you don't need that guy who's going to come in and lead you to a title.
Yeah.
That's what those other guys are looking for. And, some of these teams, you start adding a Jeremy Grant to their team, even a Matisse Thybulle who can come in and defend anybody. That's a real piece for some of these teams that are close. So you might be able to get a good young guy back.
One thing that draft night reminds me of, it makes me miss Paul Allen, because this was his night, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. He loved it. He did. And he's seen all these guys. He was there in person for the workouts, and above and beyond that, he looked at all the tape.
So he's breaking film.
Yeah.
I think the Blazers brought in 47 players prior to the draft tonight to work out. He would have been there for all that. He loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Either that, or he had the cameras installed right there, so if he wasn't there, even on the yacht, he could tune in and get that.
That's such a badass play, to be on a yacht with cameras, being able to break down potential prospects that you may be looking to draft.
Yeah.
But how many owners get that serious about breaking down film and tape? A lot of owners probably don't want any part of that. They just allow their basketball people to handle that. But Paul loved it so much he wanted to be a part of it.
I bet Matt Isby is there because he thinks he knows a lot about basketball. So he's probably there making the call for him. I hate to think about it, but, yeah, he rode the bench at Michigan, and so there he is.
That's a classic tweet from Ishbia. NBA draft night is the best. Everyone talking about the drama and storylines. Some are right and some are just wrong. Probably talking about Stephen A.
Yeah.
My turn. Phoenix loves Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant loves Phoenix, and we are competing for a championship this year because we have the team to do it. Gotta love draft night. Go Suns.
Who's going to tell them they don't have the team to do it?
Nobody. You'll get fired.
Yeah.
What do you mean we don't have the team? I just said we did.
Yeah, I don't want any negative thinking in this organization.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Dwight and Chad live from Moda Center for draft night. We're here on the club level, southwest corner above the fountain. So we look forward to seeing you down here for the draft party, which is coming up tonight here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
He's a little more Draymond than most of the players they have right
No question. Blah, 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 blah.
now.
Of the Tasmanian
that's
Devil.
kind of him, yeah.
Let's go out to David in Salem. David, welcome to the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
It's good to be with you guys. I so enjoyed the draft, with the Blazers not really being competitive for the last year or two. I really enjoyed the draft, and I've been looking at a lot of large players, watching videos and everything like that. But one thing I haven't seen anybody talk about is the draft combine in comparing these big players that potentially the Blazers could pick if they're available, like Donovan Klingland, potentially Kyle Filipowski, or even Zach Edey in some of the mock drafts. Have you watched any of the draft combine that compared their times and mobility? Because often these bigger players are discounted as not being as mobile as some of the smaller players, players from 6'9" to 6'10". And what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I appreciate that question, David. Thanks for the phone call. I didn't watch any draft combine stuff extensively, but I've talked to people who were at the combine, and I do know that Zach Edey, he factored out better in terms of movement. He's more of a slow plotting type player, but he moved better than what people thought in terms of numbers, which is nice. And for Klingon, neither one of those guys moves particularly well for a big, but they were able to showcase what they can do. The big question for Edey is this, Godfather, is we know he's got size and can be a devastating force when it comes to rim protection, but how limited will he be in different situations, like, for instance, pick-and-roll defense, right? How much of a liability will he be in that type of spot? I think for Klingon, he's probably going to be better and a little bit more mobile in those type of spots, but that's really what it's about in the NBA today, right, is because so many teams switch, and you don't want to get your big in a situation away from the basket where he can't move and he's forced to defend the pick and roll. Same issue with Rudy Gobert, who's a force on defense, but in certain situations away from the basket, he can be a little less effective. We saw it in the playoff series against Dallas when he was switched out on Luka Doncic.
Right. Chad, Edey is a player that, I'll tell you, about 3 months ago, I didn't expect him to go in the first round. I thought the league is so down on those bigs like him that nobody would invest that pick on him. But since then, I've seen the tape. I looked at some of the stuff from the combine, and hearing people who really know the game, there's a spot for Edey. And it's going to come down to that same thing again. You put him in a game, and the other team goes small. Now, what are you willing to do? Will you keep him in the game and let him work over that small guy, that small defender? Because he's one guy. Of all these guys, he is a low post guy. He can kill you with that hook shot from the baseline. He is good in the paint. He finishes really well. And he's late to the game. He didn't start playing real young like a lot of these guys did. He's a Canadian, didn't start, but probably got too big for hockey. That's all I can think of. But he has a chance to help somebody. I don't know if it would be as a starter or kind of a change of pace, but the centers in the league are getting bigger. So he will have guys to guard at a certain point during the season. So I would not just go totally dismissing Edey at all. I kind of liked him.
All right, we have a announcement from Woj. The Washington Wizards are trading forward Denny Avdija to the Portland Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon and the 14th pick tonight and a 2029 pick, sources tell ESPN. So the Blazers are already getting busy. The Wizards are trading forward Denny Avdija, I can't pronounce his name, to the Portland Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon and the 14th pick tonight and a 2029 pick.
So they gave up their 14th pick.
Yep. There you go. And a 2029 pick. So the Blazers getting some size, and they found a home for Malcolm Brogdon. So that simplifies matters a little bit.
And they divested themselves of the 14 pick.
Huh. What's your assessment on that?
Well, I don't know the player. I confess that's a guy I don't recall ever really seeing. We got to look him up, though. I can tell you that.
Okay. All right, this is what we're going to do. Shacker, let's take a break, and then we're going to reset, and then we'll have Travis Demers jump on with us to give his insight, who's also going to join us in studio tomorrow. We're live here at Moda Center for the Trailblazers draft party, which is getting underway here in a few minutes. Draft starts at 5, and then Travis Demers and Francis Williams going to anchor coverage for the rest of the evening through the first round and ending with the Joe Cronin press conference. So we'll come back, and we'll give you news on the Trailblazers deal that just went down. Avdija to the Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon and the 14th pick tonight and a 2029 pick. That, according to ESPN.
Yeah.
What's your take on the move? You say in a lot of ways it makes sense?
I think it makes sense in a ton of ways, right? Okay, so you weren't going to keep Brogdon, and you probably weren't going to get a first-round pick next year for Brogdon. And if you did, it was probably going to be in the late 20s, right? So the pick that you probably were going to get back from him, it was going to be someone who's probably 2, 3, 4 years away from contributing to the team, right? This obviously means, in my opinion, that there was nobody at 14 that they saw and was like, okay, we're really confident that this guy's going to be more than a role player for us. So you move Brogdon, you move a pick, and you get a 23-year-old 6'9" wing who scored 15 points a game last year, 37% from three. He's entering, what is this, 21, 2, 3, 4, entering year 5, and he's got a new contract that kicks in this year that starts at $15 million and gets smaller every year.
Oh.
So in the last year of that deal,
That's interesting.
the last year of that deal, he's making 11 and change.
Wow.
And when you look at the big picture of how things are going to change with the new broadcast deal, I mean, the mid-level exception is going to be more than that by the time that deal comes around. So you're getting someone who, at the very least, projects to be certainly a rotation guy, first or second man off the bench at worst, for $11 million a year. With his size, his athleticism, his shooting ability, he can score. I genuinely don't know how he is as a defender. I'd have to look into that. I didn't watch him a ton. I'm looking at Francis. Have you seen him as a defender? Avdija? Decent. Okay, so a decent defender, but he's not being brought in to be a defender. So I think in a lot of ways it makes a lot of sense. The other thing, too, is that right now the Trailblazers have one open roster spot if they don't bring back Moses Brown. You have Jabari Walker and Delano Banton, who are on deals that aren't fully guaranteed, right?
Sure.
I think Banton's deal kicks in January. He's going to cost you $200,000 till then. Jabari's deal kicks in, I think, sometime in July. So you've got a couple of decisions to make there with very few roster spots. You add a guy at 14 who is going to take up, $8 million or so, that probably isn't going to play much this year, that's going to be a developmental guy anyway. I'm not saying it's a waste of a roster spot, but it doesn't really help you all that much. Now you have more versatility to go out and make a 2-for-1 type deal.
So I assume he's a small forward.
Yeah, he's a 3.
What's your take on this deal? What's your read on it?
Well, I trust Travis on this because I'm frank about this. I don't remember him. I really don't remember him.
He was a top 10 pick in 2020.
Yeah, I seem to remember him
Doesn't
being
always
drafted, but I don't remember seeing him as a starter for that team. That's what kind of surprised me. But, you get out and average 15 points a game in this league. you're not chopped liver, okay?
Right.
You're a pretty good player getting 15 a game, even for a bad team.
And this is the same type of guy we were talking about, young guy at 23,
Right.
that you look at and think maybe he can be a part of this core that they're trying to construct, 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Israeli League MVP in 2020 when he was, 19 years old. I'm just looking through some of the other stuff because I haven't done a huge deep dive on him. But you look over the last couple of years, he was a full-time starter last year for Washington, 30 minutes a night, 37.5 three-point percentage, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 15 points. Those are pretty good numbers.
Yeah, that's decent.
Again, for what you're giving up is a player that you hope to get a late first-round pick for when the market might not have even been that, and the number 14 pick who is probably a couple of years away from competing anyway and was going to be a project that probably topped out as a role player. I think he did pretty well with a incredibly manageable contract.
All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad. Travis Demers is with us as the Trailblazers have made a move tonight. The Wizards are trading Denny Avdija to the Trailblazers in exchange for Malcolm Brogdon, the 14th pick in the draft tonight, and a 2029 pick, that according to Woj. And as you mentioned, at 14 in a draft that's not considered strong, they probably just didn't see someone at 14 where they're like, we've got to have that guy and lock him into the salary slot in the first round.
Right. And, look, I've heard a lot from fans that say what they would really like to see is somebody who is a safe pick and somebody who is a risk, a high upside guy. There are going to be a lot of high upside guys at number 7, whether it's Cody Williams or Salon or some of these other players, right? You're getting somebody who you know what he is. You're getting him, and he's under contract for, I think it's 4 more years. And again, it's a very manageable contract and someone who you know can contribute in the NBA. Is that better than taking somebody like, let's say, Zach Edey at 14 or, Ware, one of those other guys? I think it puts you in a very good spot because you were never going to hit a home run at 14. You were going to get somebody who projects as a role player at best.
All right, I want to get your take on number 7 in a moment, Travis, but let's go out to Kenny in Vancouver who wants to jump on board. Kenny, welcome to the show. You're on the air with the Godfather, Travis Demers, and Chad doing Fire Away.
Hey, fellas. Denny Avdija, he never met expectations in Washington, whether it be, he was just too young or whatever. He has some nice skills, like Travis said, shooting the ball, but he's incredibly inconsistent. He'll have a nice 29-point game, and then he'll have a 5-point game. He's a maddening type player. It's kind of a reclamation project. I'm just shocked by all the extra draft capital they gave up for him. I don't understand this. I think the Blazers are on a 10-year plan to get relevant again. It's definitely not a 2 or 3 year plan. I don't see that. They need to be more like Oklahoma City and look at it's going to be a 10-year plan. I don't understand giving up all the picks for him. I have no problem.
Well, Kenny, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave up 2 picks, right? You gave up the 14th pick this year. Chad, was that a first or second in 2029?
It did not specify.
Okay, so we don't know if it's a first or a second in 2029. It's a first?
It's a first.
Okay, it is a first. Okay. Well, look, I don't know what 2029 is going to look like, but what were you planning on getting with number 14?
Well, it's not even necessarily that, Travis. I mean, I can see, trading the 14 away, but trade it for a first-round pick next year. Don't just give it up. I don't think
nobody's traded. Nobody is going to give you a first-round pick next year for the 14th pick this year, a pick that nobody really wants anyway. I mean, we got to be realistic. Kenny, I understand what you're saying, and I understand it doesn't make sense to you right now. But what was the market for Malcolm Brogdon at the trade deadline last year? 2 seconds. Nobody was giving up more than 2 seconds. Look what P.J. Washington went for. Look what all these guys that got traded last year at the deadline went for when everyone freaked out that Malcolm Brogdon wasn't traded last year. Well, he wasn't traded because you were never going to get anything of quality back. And maybe that's what the market dictated right now. So you traded a pick that nobody really wanted anyway. You were never going to get a quality first-round pick next year for Malcolm Brogdon. It wasn't going to happen.
And I get what you're saying, Travis. I do. I don't mind even the 14th pick this year. What the problem with my main problem is that, yes, Avdija needs a new scenery, and it may very well be to hopefully he's great here. But the bottom line is I don't get the 29 pick going there. I just don't. You're trying to accrue more picks in the future because it's going to be a 10-year project. I'm looking at.
Look, do you really believe that Joe Cronin looks at this like a 10-year project? Because if it is, he's going to be out of a job really soon. Joe Cronin is not looking at. Kenny, hold on a minute, Kenny.
Okay.
Look, Joe Cronin is not looking at this and saying, you know what, it's 2024. By the time the mid 2030s roll around. I want this team to be good. He's going to be out of a job in 2 years if that's how he's looking at it. He might be out of a job in less than that. So he has to have a plan to turn it around in the next year or two. He has to have a plan to get a top pick next year and very quickly after that pick a direction. The idea that they are not trying to make this happen in the next year or two, I mean, come on, man. That's not realistic.
Yeah, you're right. He knows that he's got to make things happen now, or just like anyone else in this business, results, right? If you don't get the results, you're going to be out of a job.
And the Wizards franchise has been a dumpster fire for 5, 6, 7 years, for a long time. He had a huge jump from the 2 years ago to last year, from 5 points a game to 15 points a game. He got consistent minutes. Is he an inconsistent player? Yes, but how many 22-year-olds who are still adjusting to the NBA game on garbage teams with very inconsistent coaching that changes every year or two have any consistency?
I would say this. It's an interesting thing to me that people really believe that it's a 10-year. Is that something you hear a lot, that people think it's going to take that long? I mean, it's not.
2 years ago in Oklahoma City, what were people saying about that team?
But you got to keep in mind, Kenny is
the Knicks 3 years ago. I mean,
the Knicks for the last 20 years.
I know, and all of a sudden, boom, it hit for them. Now, I would say, and I've told Chad this, I'm not much interested in second-round picks in this situation, honestly, because you've got to be making dynamic moves, and a lot of those aren't going to come with second-round picks. Yeah, can you get some depth that way? You could get some NBA players in the second round, but, man, you got to be going. And I would say this, too. If you're looking to get a good pick next year, Brooklyn established last night that they're going to be hard to beat for that top pick. They're tanking big time.
Well,
when you look at what they're going to be running out on the floor next year,
it's going to be bad. But you think about this, Dwight. The 3 worst teams in the league have the same shot at getting number 1.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't have to be the worst.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the top 3 worst.
And keep in mind with Kenny in Vancouver, he's a big Dame guy, so he's still
bitter about that.
Yeah, he's still upset about Dame being gone. Now, before you go, Trav, there are reports out that the Blazers may be looking at Cody Williams at number 7. There's a couple of guys you like at 7. Who do you like at 7 if they're available?
As we talked about, for somebody who is a safe pick and somebody who is a risk, now you have an opportunity to play for a risk because you get somebody who is an established NBA player that you know what they bring. So I'm more willing to take a risk there. I don't think Klingon's going to be available at 7. I like him a lot, but I also really like Cody Williams. I like his athleticism, his size, the things that he brings. I like the idea of Salon, and I'm not saying he's going to be Giannis, but he's a guy that might take 3 or 4 years to develop. And, by the time this team is hopefully in serious contention, that's when he pops. I think somebody in that ballpark is what I would be looking for with the 7th pick for the Blazers.
All right, the voice of the Trailblazers, Travis Demers, here on the Rip City Drive. He'll be anchoring coverage coming up at 4:30 across the Trailblazers radio network here on the flagship as well, 620 Rip City Radio. Draft will kick off at 5. Thanks for stopping by,
Thank
brother.
You. Dwight, I'm sorry for cutting you off. I haven't been on the air in like 2.5 months, and the juices are getting flowing,
you
man.
You didn't cut me off. In fact, I'll make the invitation now. Why don't you come back with us tomorrow?
Can I come in for the whole show?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do it.
He's going to be in studio with us tomorrow for the entire ride as we work through the second round, and we'll be able to react to everything that goes down tonight.
See you guys in a few.
All right, Travis Demers here on the Rip City Drive. He'll be taking over and running the ship coming up at 4:30. But I like the move for Avdija. You had to get rid of Brogdon. We knew that was going to go down.
Yeah.
And you bring in a young player with size, but more importantly, a guy that can shoot the 3. And you've already pointed out earlier today, they need guys that can shoot.
Yeah, they do. And Brogdon's just the first to go.
Yeah.
He's the first to go, but there's going to be more following him.
Yes, and if you can't get picks in next year's draft, which I'm sure they're going to pursue, the next best thing is a young player that you think has a chance to hit. And we've seen a lot of those guys where they get a fresh start. Teams are looking to do something else, so they let someone like that go, and they turn out to hit and become a valuable part. And I'm a big fan of shooters, guys that can stroke the three, and if you can hit the three ball at 37%, give me more of that.
Me too.
Especially at 6'9", versatile. So the first of many, Malcolm Brogdon is on his way to the Wizards. I'm sure he's not thrilled about playing basketball for the Wizards, but he does get a chance to go back to the other side of the country and be closer to home. And then I would imagine at some point, maybe he'll be on the move again. That's just the rough part about the NBA sometimes.
I know. It absolutely is. Ian Carmel, by the way, is a little taken aback by that trade.
He is?
Yeah, he thought he was going to be drafted tonight by the Blazers.
Who, Ian Carmel was?
Yeah, he thought he would be drafted tonight.
At 14.
And he was upset that the only Jewish player in the league was traded for by the Blazers. He said, I could have been a Blazer, and instead you took this guy.
That's great. Avdija is from Israel, and he'll be a part of the Portland Trail Blazers now. So the Blazers are busy making moves. But, of course, they're going to continue. And we know that Brogdon was the first. We thought he would be the first to go. But the other guys that you got to look at, I think, are obviously Jeremy Grant, who's going to be sought after from other teams out there looking to make a move. They're going to have to make a decision sometime in the near future on what they're going to do with the backcourt, including Anthony Simons. You still got Matisse Thybulle, who could be considered a valuable defensive piece for another team out there. And then you got Robert Williams, who I would contend it's probably better to move him sooner rather than later. He's on track to be ready for training camp. I'm just not sure that you want him competing too much to where you risk another injury before you can move him out.
Yeah, wrap him in bubble wrap and trade him when he's healthy. There's no question about that, because there is value there, and there's going to be a team willing to take that risk and say, hey, we'll baby him through the regular season just to get him to the playoffs, because he's that good a player. He's a very valuable player. You saw that in Boston a couple of years ago. He can really help you when he's healthy.
All right, if he's not available, Klingon, who I think you would be excited to see the Blazers land.
Oh, yeah.
We don't think he's going to be available at number 7, but what about the idea of Cody Williams?
Yeah, Cody Williams okay. Yeah, look, I think you're just taking – it's the same chance you're taking with almost any of these guys, Chad. And I think they probably know more about him. They've seen him more than they have some of the foreign players probably. High risk, high reward. We heard that earlier this week. And – yeah, that's okay. Maybe he hits, maybe he doesn't. They took the same chance with Shaden Sharp, and it looks like that's going to turn out okay. We still don't really know, but it looks like it's going to be fine.
Would you have any pause about moving Anthony Simons now based on the unknown quantity of Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson?
I'd have some pause, but look, I've said this all along, at some point you got to make up your mind and be bold and make a move. If you have a chance to get, let's just say you could get a pick next year in the draft, you got to go. You got to do it. Now, depending on what you can get for him, yeah, if it's a piece of your future, you got to make the call. You got to fish or cut bait at some point. You got to make the call.
I'm a big fan of Simons, and I'm a big fan of what Scoot could become, but I just think they're the same player, and I don't want to see playing time taken away from some of these young guys that need to be on the floor, hopefully healthy, and getting a chance to development, because aside from acquiring assets in the future, particularly in next year's draft, like we talked about, player development is going to be priority number one.
Yeah, and don't forget what the mission's going to be next year. The mission is going to be losing games.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, but look, that draft next year is too good to not. I mean, you've been stuck in this lottery now. It's time to get lucky next year.
I mean, ideally for me, I hope the team ends up in one of those top 3 spots to have equal shot to have a chance at number 1, because Cooper Flagg is that type of player.
Yeah. And don't forget, though, and I've said this, even getting in the top 3 next year is going to be tough, because teams all agree on Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Everybody wants him. It's your only chance to get a superstar, really. You're not going to get him as a free agent. You're not going to trade what they have here now unless you just get supremely lucky. You got to be bold, and you got to take that shot at getting Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Or even failing that, the top 3 or 4 players in that draft are probably better than anybody you have on the roster now.
Well, they can accomplish multiple things, and if they can continue to move out some of the vets we talked about,
yes,
you create more playing time for your young guys who need to develop. Right. You potentially acquire more assets moving into the draft next year. You also get your salaries in line.
Yes.
And that's really what it's all about. And you won't win too many games.
Well, that's just what I was going to get to, Chad. The downside to playing young players is going to cost you some games. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. I mean, really. So you play. These guys make mistakes. That's okay.
Yeah.
Pat them on the back, suit them up again tomorrow night. That's the way it's going to be.
And the reality is you got a head coach who's going to want to try and win, so you're going to have to limit what he has access to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you do when you try to do that. You take players away from the coach. You either put them on the injured list, you waive them, you trade them, you do whatever, and we've seen all of that occur here. And so that's why I expect several of the veterans to be gone this summer. I don't expect all these guys to come to camp.
Yeah, it makes sense. And this is the right play. I'm excited about it because keep in mind next year's draft, 5 or 6 guys who would go ahead of everyone in this year's draft, which is pretty exciting. And the Blazers simply have to put themselves in a position to be a part of that because that's what it's all about. And when you do that and you land some of those young players, then all of a sudden you've got the core to work with. And then hopefully 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you're in a position to where then you can use some of your assets that you've acquired to go out there and bring in the piece that you think can help get you over the top. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it is, Chad. And I think if people don't know Cooper Flagg, he's going to be a Dookie next year, okay? They're on TV almost every game. Tune in and watch the guy, and you'll know what we're talking about. Extremely talented.
Basically, every game that he plays will be on national television.
Oh, yeah.
You're excited about him.
Oh, absolutely. I never get too excited over this, especially him. He reclassified just to be a senior this year. He should be a junior this year.
Yeah.
This past year. So I'm thinking, why would I get excited? And then I saw him, and I watched a bunch of their summer league games. Oh, my goodness. This kid can pass. He can shoot the three. He can guard. I mean, he's a rebounder. He makes big shots. He's got the personality. He's your guy. This is the guy. He's the next big thing.
All right, Dwight and Chad, we're live here from the club level, getting ready for the Trailblazers draft party. Travis Demers, Francis Williams going to anchor the coverage coming up at 4:30. I want to reset your thoughts real quick on the big deals that went down last night. First off, the Knicks moving out a haul, 5 first-round picks. In exchange, they get Mikal Bridges from the Nets. They're going to pair him with OG Anunoby, who, according to reports with Woj, he plans to sign a 5-year extension with the Knicks worth $212 million. They'll be able to pair them with the other Villanova guys. It looks like the Knicks are putting themselves in a position to make a serious run. What do you think about what they did with Bridges?
Everybody in the league would love to have Bridges on their team, Chad, and they got him. And their front office has been the best in the league for the last 2 years. They've done a great job, and I say that knowing that Boston's front office is great too. But look, this was genius. Somehow getting him away from Brooklyn, that team that's your rival, really, right there in the same city. I don't know how they did it, but they got him, and it cost him a haul. But it didn't cost them anything on the court,
Yeah.
really. That's the thing. Yeah, they gave up one player, Bogdanovich, I think they gave up, and then all those picks. Well, losing him and bringing back Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a guy that, he's all defense. He can guard people. He can make shots. He's unselfish, and he fits perfect with what they're doing. And I think the way it looks, you can't have too many Villanova guys.
No.
That's the way it looks.
No, the culture, they play hard, they play team basketball, and I just love that nucleus now with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby. They were going to have a hard time re-signing Hartenstein before they made this move.
Right.
So they're going to have to look to the draft tonight. They've got multiple picks. They're going to have to find some cost-control bigs who can come in and help out. The Nets, obviously now positioning themselves to go out and retool the entire franchise, and they've got the draft capital to do it. And I guess if you're a GM, you need to have options, and they got that now.
Yeah, all kinds of options, Chad.
And they're going to be focused on next year's draft, big time.
Yeah, and who knows? There have been Knick teams get lucky in the draft before.
The Rockets have positioned themselves now to go out and do some big game hunting. That's what Ime Udoka wants, right?
One year of that last year. He's interested now in going for it.
All right,
and he's just the coach to do it.
Thanks for your time today, buddy. You're on your way over to the practice facility
Gotta get
now
out
along with
there.
Chris Burkhardt, so enjoy the traffic, and then you and I will reconvene tomorrow, my friend.
Yes, along with Travis. Don't forget,
30.
we've invited him.
That's right. Travis Demers is going to be in studio with us tomorrow. Coming up next, Trailblazers Broadcasting will take over. Travis Demers, Francis Williams, I'll be hanging out, and we'll continue live here from the Trailblazers draft party, getting ready for the first round, which kicks off at 5. The Blazers have made a big move, acquiring Denny Avdija and giving up tonight's 14th pick. So the question is, who do they take at 7? We'll find out here in a bit.